I guess overemphasizing certain aspect of your message.
Okay, what I mean by coding overconfidence is both the sender and the receiver are overconfident to the success of their coding. So as I send the message, I'm very confident that it's been clear. And as I receive a message, I'm very confident that I understand your meaning. The sender and the receiver, in their own subjective ways, feel that they have a clear understanding of the message. But they might not. And one thing that ties in with this is called signal amplification bias. What that means is the tendency to overstate how much one's behavior conveys internal states. So, I might say to you, I thought it was clear that I didn't really want to hang out with you when I said maybe we could get together sometime. I said maybe, and I waited a couple days before I got back to you. So why are you trying to rub up at me in this party here? I thought it was clear, when I said this or when I acted mad, that you knew that this was an important project. So more discussion on coding overconfidence. I want to reference a study that was conducted by the American Management Association about emails. They worked with students, and they tried to determine how much overconfidence was a problem in sending and receiving emails. So they took a bunch of students, and they told them to communicate certain statements via email. Sometimes, for some of those statements, students were told to use a sarcastic tone. So sometimes they said just communicate this message, sometimes use a sarcastic tone. Recipients correctly assessed the sarcastic tone 56% of the time. So they asked the recipient, was this supposed to be sarcastic or was this supposed to be not sarcastic? The recipients correctly guessed 56% of the time. So what is that a good assessment? Is that a high assessment? What does that mean, 56% of the time? It's not high. Like what would you get if you just guessed? You would get 50%. So pretty much the same as guessing. For this study, the recipients were correct about as much as guessing whether or not this email was supposed to be sarcastic. So in terms of the interpretation, the clarity of the message, no better than guessing. Problem is that the senders anticipated an accuracy rate of 78%. So meaning when I sent that message, 8 out of 10 people said the message is clear. It's even worse for the recipients who said when I read this message, I know whether it's sarcastic or not. 9 out of 10 of them said yes, it's clear. I know correctly whether it's sarcastic or not. So what do you think about that? How does that lead to a problem in communication? A lot of noise could be the problem. But the real problem is this overconfidence. 9 out of 10 people said, yeah, I understand. I got your message. 8 out of 10 people said, yeah, that message was clear. But the actual result was, it was no more clear than guessing.
They miss a lot of information.
A lot of what?
A lot of information. They miss a lot of information.
They may miss a lot of information. Jesse? Yeah, most people are subjective. They just see things from their own point of view. And that's what we need to understand as students of communication. We need to think about how we can be clear, and how we can choose the right medium to be clear, how we can understand the context that our audience is viewing, and how we can code in a way that is useful and understandable for our audience. A couple of examples, a few examples actually, and let's think about the problems back to this chart that I promised I would never teach with. All right, and let's think about some of the examples I'm going to throw at you. Where might the problem occur? Would it be in coding? Would it be in the medium selection? would it be in the context? Let's start with a couple of text messages. Let's look at this one first. All right, so this is a message from someone's boss. Here is the boss's message. Here's the reply from the person whose phone it is, and here's the boss's other reply. So the boss says, someone at the conference just said that our company might get bought out by Cybex. What do you think? The employee replies, I'm not sure what to think. Should we touch base with legal or start a combination analysis? Whatever that means. The boss says, maybe not all that, but it gives us something to think about. I have to get back to the conference. They're moving us to a different room. Talk soon. So what might be some problems? Or, is it an effective message? Rashish starts out.
I think it's not clear, like, what do you think? Is it like some understanding that they had, like, the company was going to get sold, the company was going to be overtaken, or is it, we really don't know, is it a bad news or good news, for the employees of the company?
Okay, so that's unclear. I completely agree with that, Blake.
You don't know if it's definitely happening. The boss, he's the boss, he's the manager, it's up to him to legitimately say, this is what's going on, here's how it affects you. It's, still speculation. It might not necessarily affect the recipient of this message.
Okay, absolutely. Fair point. Other thoughts? Jim?
I guess for the what do you think question, is he asking him if they think they're going to get bought out, or is he asking them to do this analysis?
Yes,
Really
what do you think? So that's unclear. And I think we can look at that issue that Jim specifically alluded to by thinking about the medium. All right, text messaging. What does this medium imply? It might imply informal, and that might be the interpretation. What else might text messaging imply?
The way just read the first time, which is conference. It's not formal. It's something that they can talk later. I'm sure it's at a conference. He's focused on something else. It's not the time.
Okay, good. All right, so informal definitely could be an interpretation of this. Could be an interpretation of the medium of text messaging. But what else might texting imply?
Trust.
Trust?
Well, it's urgent.
Urgency. Urgency. All right, text message might imply urgency. So that could be the problem with this. Is this an urgent thing that I need to deal with? Or is this just a casual, informal, back and forth because I have a good relationship with my boss? I think that's the point, that's the main takeaway here. The point I wanted to raise with this type of message. Any further questions on that, Alan?
Well, I think that the person receiving text, you're going to know which it is. If you text a lot back and forth with your boss and you are closer with them, on a personal level, then this would just be like gossip. But if you never text with your boss and you get this, then you might be like, oh my God, something's wrong.
I would agree with that. So as you get to know your boss more, you may have more information. But still, even if you have a good relationship with your boss, even if you text a lot with your boss, looking back at this, you might think, wait a minute, did she or he want me to do this? As the hours go by, when you don't hear from your boss, you think they're in this conference, maybe I should have done something. I think there's, even if you really understand the context and really understand your boss, I think there's the room for that confusion. Any further comments? Blake.
No, thank you. He says that someone at the conference mentioned that the company is being bought out. And if he's sending that text, I'm assuming that I'm not also in this conference.
Right.
So how would I know whether if it's legitimate or not?
But that's the thing. You got a text message from your boss. Did you get a text message because it's informal, chatty, or did you get a text message because it's urgent? And I think that's the crux of the confusion. All right, another example. This is from someone's mom is the person sending, and this is the child. Mom says, your great aunt just passed away, LOL. Child says, why is that funny? Mom says, it's not funny, David. What do you mean? Child says, Mom, LOL means laughing out loud. Oh my goodness, I sent that to everyone. I thought that meant lots of love. I have to call everyone back. Oh my God. What's the problem there? Karen. Yeah, it's a coding problem, a coding mistake. Or it could be overconfidence, yeah. Overconfidence as well. So the coding mistake and coding overconfidence could be a problem too. Any other comments on that? That's
I
pretty
think that's
straightforward.
what my mom used to think LOL meant also.
Lots of love. Right. So this is 2011. You know, several years of texting have gone by, and you know there's still confusion about what all these things mean. All right, this next one I included for no other reason than it's really funny, but there's also some coding medium problems we can think about. Okay. This is from Sarah. Sarah's sending this hey, and this is someone Sarah's in a relationship with. Hey, the person she's in a relationship says, hey, we need to talk. Sarah says, yeah, question mark. Look, our relationship is like doing push-ups on your knees. It's just not working out. Sarah says, oh my God, did you just break up with me? Like doing push-ups on your knees. It's just not working out. I think there's some interesting things with some code. So what was the message?
It's not working out.
We should break up. And how was this coded? Funny. It was coded as funny. But also more than that, I kept looking at this. It was coded as a pun. Like, at first I thought it was going to be a metaphor. Like, just a metaphor would be a comparison. Like, it's just not working. It's like doing push-ups on your knees. It's hard on the joints. Like our relationship is hard on the joints. It's painful. Right? That would be a metaphor. But it's a pun. Just not working out means not going to the gym and working out. And also just not working out means our relationship is not effective. Alright, so that's the message. And this person chose to code it as a pun. This person also chose text message for the medium, which we could discuss at length if we want. Any other, I guess, context issues we could bring into this discussion? All the text, Priya?
It's interesting that she started the conversation.
Oh, yes, good. So this is a Sarah-initiated conversation. And the response is, our relationship is just not working out. I included this one of all the, it was fun searching social media, or searching, for examples of bad social media. And this is of the appropriate ones that I could bring into class, this was probably the most fun. All right, let's look at this Twitter campaign example. I don't know if anyone remembers this one. The NYPD said they wanted to increase their public relations, more friendly feel. So they said, let's use Twitter. Let's create this handle, hashtag MyNYPD. And they sent out this tweet to people following them. Said, do you have a photo with a member of the NYPD? Tweet us and tag it, hashtag MyNYPD. It may be featured on our Facebook. So they want pictures of, friendly neighborhood interaction, and we may feature that on our Facebook. Does anyone remember this a year or so ago?
I kind of heard about
Kind of vaguely remember it? All right, so first of all, what's your interpretation of this tweet? Is it like rub you the right way, the wrong way? Karen?
I think it can go sour very quickly.
It could go sour very quickly, and it did go sour very quickly, and we'll look at what happened. But first, this looks to me like the NYP doesn't really get it. They're trying to be cool and be hip by using a hashtag, and also they're saying it may be featured on our Facebook. Like, oh wow, I hope I get to be featured on the Facebook. You would do me that honor? All right, and what happened is people started tweeting not friendly pictures with them in the NYPD. It became this joke of tweeting, is this the one your public relations people requested? Hashtag MyNYPD. I don't know if there were any positive ones, but if there were only a few. In this one, you can see the police officer violently beating some sort of suspect. Do you have a member? Tag us and tweet us, maybe feature on Facebook. All right, Jessica. Okay, so this is an example. NYPD what? Not understanding context, coding, medium. Where did they go wrong with their attempt in this social media campaign? Jim?
I guess they didn't understand the meme because they didn't realize anybody could use that hashtag to show the NYPD in a negative light too.
Okay, yeah, so they didn't understand that it could go negative. Let's drill down on that discussion a little bit more. Matthew?
If you already have a negative image, you can't go to social media because you're just asking them to like reveal how negative you are. You know, instead of amending it, you're just adding.
Yes, yes. I think they thought this was a context that people would do what they said, or people would respond in a way that they asked them to. They didn't realize that Twitter was the very expression of freedom of expression. People can express however they want. And I don't know, do people typically express more negative things over Twitter or more positive things over Twitter? You'd say more negative? All right, Karen?
Yeah, I was gonna say that whoever was this behind this whole thing is the social media coordinator, because every time you put a campaign out, you have to consider the consequences and videos. And had that person raised this ad maybe the word friendly to it, then maybe things would not mess out.
Okay, so that would have helped, but I would say even still, that may not have helped, because they said, who are you to tell me how to use Twitter? Right? You don't understand that Twitter is my vehicle for ranting. I might even put worse pictures if I had worse pictures, Dree.
They don't have any control over this. If they had said, send us your pictures, and then they could like look at which ones to post, that would have been
That would have been a good strategy. Send us your pictures. You may win a ride along, something like that. Alicia.
I would be curious to know what the police officers actually thought of this, because my husband is actually a New Jersey state trooper, so he would never have wanted his own picture up here like this, because he would nowadays unfortunately it's just the way it is, he fears every time he's out, especially in public with anything happening, where I think that this would make him mad as a police officer.
Yeah.
Like this. It almost it's showing pictures of police officers that now somebody can go find in the street, especially if there's a street sign or something, you just don't know.
Yeah. Huge
So I wonder
problem.
what they actually thought of it.
Yeah, I'm sure the police officers didn't like it. Especially, maybe
When
this
you
guy
get
was
things
having,
like that.
maybe this guy was, I hope this isn't your husband or anything.
No, but again, for that, that man, as a police officer, he could have had it, I don't know, but he could have had a legit reason for whatever he was doing, who knows, I'm not gonna speculate, but, that makes him look bad.
Makes him look bad, makes everyone look bad. All right, so that's another huge disadvantage. All this negative press, especially for individual police officers. So they didn't really understand the context. They didn't really understand the medium. I think those are the two important takeaways. Any other thoughts? Matt?
I think they could have given some incentive. If they gave a better incentive.
Oh yeah, like win a ride along or something. Something more than that, yeah. Yeah, then that's what you heard my mocking tone, ooh, I'll get to be featured on the NYPD Facebook page. What's the big deal with that?
Maybe that's the coordinator.
Oh, okay. Okay, so moving on to a different Twitter campaign. Do you all, I'm sure you remember that big Ray Rice thing where Ray Rice punches his, I think, then girlfriend or then fiance, and huge social conversation, and, oh, right, before she was fiance, this is his way of proposing. So there became this hashtag why I stayed, and it became this very productive discussion, it seems, of people explaining why they were in a domestic abuse situation and how to deal with that. It's hard to say put a positive spin on it, but how to sort of deal with that very complex, very difficult discussion. And people were sharing very moving stories about hashtag why I stayed on Twitter. And someone at DiGiorno Pizza sees this hashtag why I stayed and sees this is trending, let's capitalize on some sort of trending social media, and let's post hashtag why I stayed, you had a pizza. What do you think, Paul?
I think it's very serious.
Yeah, right, so they're trying to sell something based on this very difficult conversation, and they obviously just don't understand that it's not trending for a reason why you're going to buy more pizzas. It's trending because there is a difficult social discussion that's taking place. Karen?
My first comment that you can go with.
This one?
First comment, yeah, it brings me like the definition of how to wise things. So,
Yeah, Arpit?
So I guess it's a coding issue, right? Even if they wanted to kind of put their brand out there, instead of saying why a steak fried pizza, you could have kind of put your thoughts on the issue itself, and that's still get your branding out there, right?
Okay, yeah.
People know you're a pizza company.
Yes. I would say the big problem with this is failing to understand the context and seeing just some sort of trending thing on Twitter. Let me capitalize on that. And that's an interesting question. Coding. Let's fill out that argument a little bit. Coding. How was this coded incorrectly? Should they even have been on Twitter trying to sell pizzas under this hashtag in the first place? Should they have weighed in on this? Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, what if they did know what it meant, but they were trying to be funny? Talk about confidence.
Okay, so yeah. So they did know, suppose, if they did know what it meant, and they were trying to be funny. So that's a difficult coding problem, a difficult problem understanding what the receivers of this message do not have the same sense of humor. Yeah, Blake.
I feel like it's really inappropriate. And it's really undermining a pretty serious issue that they're trying to spread awareness about.
Yeah. So hopefully it wasn't. I think the thinking was that they just didn't understand. I think they issued an apology. That they just saw this trending and someone said, oh, we should get on trending stuff, but they didn't realize the context. Paul?
I totally agree with her. And when I first read it, what I thought was humiliated, not sensitive to other people, just not. So my first word was silly, but in reality, they're being very insensitive to a very big issue.
Yeah.
It's mine.
Absolutely. So failing to understand the context. Great. So let's take maybe 10-minute break. Or do you need less? I need a quick break. Do you want 10 minutes? Do you want less? More? 20 minutes? Half an hour? Yeah, see, All right. Well, let's take 10 minutes. So we'll come back at 7:34, and we'll discuss the Dell case.
I think it's just the presses. But yeah, hey, if there's power in the building, I think I'm living there. I really don't know.
you might need any.
다음에 find out.
I'll let you guys know next week.
All right.
Now that I know, I'll actually look for it.
He's terrible. Guy. Pretty good player.
I just got a shaky. 10 years of people to choose why it's like, really? She's lovely. Just can't believe it.
I would see
First month, yeah. So we're all new and this is why we're asking for like student government stuff.
Like, so in the patient page, right? The patient page, blah,
You can
blah,
vote
blah.
just yourself, and last question, you can vote back.
At the time, what I usually, yeah, if he's over 65, it's Apple or get under. Or if they never, if they got. They don't remember that. They don't ask like.
Yeah.
What's the scale? I didn't know. You're right up the. Yeah. But it's probably like,
You live in a nice part. Not the bad part. Not the bad part. Okay, because it's a bad part.
yeah. Yeah. That's like all the cops. No. These are like, yeah.
Scary.
Really the thing with calculation, I didn't know that. So calculation isn't yeah, I did not know that. And then one thing is in math, always oh, yeah. They did. It was. I didn't have problems with this. The one I had was questionable. Which based on this, so they gave out paragraph like like based on the result, which translation that
I just downloaded the new virus. And I got a message from this guy that was like, you need to download it again. And I was like, and this happened on my semester with Jacksonville yesterday. I was getting like, their conversation didn't make any sense. I was like reading it and I'm like, and I was like, guys, I actually have no idea. Like, it seems like you're jumping from subjects. And I was like, and then there was one big block of time where one person switched to and just talking to herself like 20 minutes. And so that's why today I was like, I have to even insane. And so, okay. Oh, I wasn't even paying attention. Probably that would make more sense. I was like, but I'm gonna be missing. The part about the feet, that's what confused me. I was like, when did that feet?
And it's all reading like the story.
Oh, so maybe it did make sense. And I was just like,
And so it's posted, so it's all like serious letters, all these negative.
I actually have a yes.
So they, so instead of locking in all of your. I'm gonna download it tonight. I meant to do it last night after that happened. Because I'm trying to see if I saw the picture. I was like,
Especially
yeah, it's like my friend being like, oh, we haven't paid that money, it's provided. And then it's like, oh, we're gonna.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to discuss this Dell's efforts at generating a positive social media presence, and in particular Dell's efforts to drive business results using social media. So let's just start with some background on this case. Give me some important dates, Carrie. When did Dell start? Gary? Oh, yeah. When did Dell start? When was the company originated?
The middle the late 19.
All right, somebody help us out. When did Dell start? Matt?
1984.
1984. So who started it? Okay, where did he start? In his dorm room. All right, so he starts in his dorm room in 1984. All right, start. All right, let me throw out some important dates. What happened, and we'll frame our discussion around those. What happened in 2004 to this company?
He resigned as CEO.
Yes, why did he resign as CEO? This is not really. He just had enough. Jim?
He wanted to focus on being chairman of the board.
Okay, so 2004, Dell was out. Out. Okay, and then he came back, right? When did he come back?
2007.
2007. Why did he come back?
Because Dell changed.
Yes, so Dell in. So sales are down. Michael Dell says, I gotta get back and I gotta make some changes. And what happened in 2013? Jim?
Sent out this tweet about social media. Is that what?
Yes, he did, but what was the tweet about? What happened?
Companies going private.
Private, okay, excellent. So let's frame private. All right, so let's discuss these areas. Like from 1984 to 2004, what do we know about Dell? Who can give us some information about the company, how they're doing, what's going on? Arpit.
Started off well. I went public, I think in like 1987 or 88.
Yes.
And they were not using middlemen, so they were kind of shipping it from their warehouse.
Okay, so tell me about that. Not using middlemen. Tell me about their business
So
strategy.
no retailers. They basically sold directly to consumers. So you called by going online and calling them up on 1-800 numbers.
Exactly. Matthew, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, this is the phone.
Okay, so, yes, Gary?
They were sort of made to order, which means that it's everything's customized and the integrated. It's a vertical system, I think, so they can make everything, and then without going to the retailer that sell the computers.
Oh, okay, so integration. So you mentioned some interesting things. So made to order. Made to order. Our kid said they have this big phone, you call, right? You call, that's how you buy a Dell computer, you call. Alright, what happens when you call? What is the person,
Yeah.
tell me.
What do you need the computer for?
Yeah, so there's a
Kinda tells
personal
you what
touch.
kind of computer, basically customizes your computer based on your needs.
Yeah, alright. So customizes your computer, and this is important. This is, perhaps a confusing time in the computer industry. There's this period in my computer buying life when Macintosh and Apple was big. You just bought an Apple, and when I went to college in the early 90s, and then more recently now Macintosh is back, so you just buy a Macintosh. But there was this whole confusing time in between. It's like 2000, what do I buy? And so Dell has this system where you can call them directly, and they'll work through with you what your needs are, do this made-to-order thing. Carrie mentioned some things about integration, effective supply lines, that sort of thing. All right, so what else do we know about Dell during this heyday period? Jim?
Their computers were much cheaper than Apple and Microsoft had.
Yes, cheaper. All All right, so this is a key point. All right, it's going to drive their social media strategy down the line. They're at this point cheaper. What else? Anything? Okay, so 2004, what happens again? Well, we said Michael Dell left, and so between 2004 and 2007,
Sales went down.
sales down. Why were sales down?
I guess there was a change in their thinking about, basically their customer service wasn't where it was supposed to be.
Okay, Jim?
I think also the industry is moving more towards laptops than towards desktop computers.
Okay. So we have the shift towards laptop. I think our that's a good shot, but their customer service was always pretty good. I don't think they had. That's a general statement, but that wasn't necessarily what was happening at this point. And I think it's
Competition.
competition. The key thing is competition. And Jim mentioned a specific type of competition. Tell us more about that competition.
There was HP and
Yeah, Lenovo, and they were able to price things much lower, enough lower. They were no longer the cheapest computers. So, sales are down as a result of that. And then Michael Dell comes back. And is there a shift in business strategy around this time? Jim?
There's a shift in their social media strategy and their internet outreach towards customers.
Yes, okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. But what's their underlying business strategy in terms of the sales they're trying to generate? Dan?
business customers.
Yes. Business to business. They said, you know what, it's harder for us to compete in the business consumer market. We're not abandoning this, but we're going to focus on a higher margin business to business. Right?
They started offering servers and other software.
Okay, servers for businesses or, yeah, businesses, right? Yeah, so servers, who needs a server? Do any of you all need a server for your personal needs? Yeah, I don't need a server. So that's something, great point, like that's something important to the business models. And then this private, this going private in 2013. How does that, can anyone tell us a little bit about that, why that happened and how that might affect the way Dell operates going forward? Jim?
They're not really focused at meeting goals quarter to quarter. They can be more innovative.
Yes. They can be more innovative and they can think long term. And we'll talk about how that might be important to developing their social media strategy. So that's a little background on what's going on with Dell starting in 1984 all the way up till it went private in 2013. And as you read from the case, they had a very successful social media strategy. And let's define that success first of all. How do we know that they were successful other than the fact that they had a Harvard business case written about them? Okay.
They measured sales based on where the sale was triggered from. So like if they posted something on Twitter and how many people actually clicked the link and went to their buying site to buy a computer.
Yeah, so they could track sales that way, and they saw they had a significant number of sales just based on that link. Click.
Better brand perception.
Yes. All right. So how do we quantify that? How do we know that the brand perception was better? Besides that they had a Harvard business case written about
Like approvals, likes.
it. Okay. Was there some stuff in the case about they had more approvals, more likes? A good shot though. Like I'm not trying to make your life difficult. I'm just trying to give us a good.
It said on the first page that they relied on social media to generate sales, predict trends, and create better brand perception online.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
what I took from this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Jim.
They talked about bringing customer advisory committees, so they got perspective of people who have their product negatively and positively.
Okay, so, all right, so they had these advisory committees where they got feedback, and that's a good point. I want to talk about that in sort of how they went about success, and I think the customer advisory committee is an important part. But let's just get some tangible ideas about success. One was the link to, what do you call that? Click marketing or link to sales. And they could actually see And when someone responded to a Twitter post, that person bought a computer. Alex?
Engaging and training the employees how to use the social media.
Okay, so
And
good.
customers.
But how do we know that that was successful? How do we know that that worked? Okay,
I think you
I'll
can
come
also,
back to that point, Ali, because that's a good point we want to discuss, but just in terms of
there was
success.
an increase in, people following their Twitter posts on Facebook. I know they also started blogs, and blogs were very popular on customers,
Okay.
writing their stories, getting feedback, and help.
Yeah, increase followers. All right, and I'm not going for anything difficult here. We can look also at their revenue. The revenue went up. I think there was a revenue dip in 2011, but then it went up significantly in 2012 and 13. So increased sales. We don't know entirely if that's related to social media, but we know that that's something good happening.
I think they also had less employees in the call centers because problems were getting solved online.
Yes, that was specifically mentioned in the case. We have to spend less money on our call centers because we're addressing these problems over social media. So decreased costs. And anything else? They mentioned increased productivity and less turnover, supposedly because their employees are able to get more done by answering problems over social media, and because they allowed their employees to be on social media whenever they wanted. They felt that that was somehow related to less employee turnover. In an era when many companies were saying you can't ever use Facebook at work, or you can't ever use social media. They linked that to increased productivity and decreased turnover. Okay, so I wanted to have that just discussion so we know what the success was before we start talking about how they accomplished it. And you all jumped the gun a little bit and gave us some of those examples, and let's revisit that. And let's say, how were they able to create this social media success? And I want to break this into 3 areas. I want to talk about the culture that Dell might have had to create this social media success. I'm going to talk about the strategy they decided on. And then I want to talk about the way they executed that strategy. So let me just jot those up there, start generating some ideas of what in each of those 3 areas contributed to this success with Qcify. Culture, abstract, execution. Okay. So what do we got? All right, what do we got in each of these areas? I'll start a little bit with culture. I feel like as MBA students, we talk about culture, but we don't have a really true understanding of culture. And there's a number of reasons with that. One, we don't really care if a company's hiring, we love their culture. 2, we might be doing the same thing at any company in our entry level of management. But I think at Dell, the way this case is described, this is a very good example of a culture contributing to a good social media strategy. What I'm looking for are some of the things you mentioned over here with the history of the company, and some of the things that Michael Dell might have believed or engaged in. Jim?
They're very customer focused.
Yes. So they're already a very customer focused. Back in the 80s and the 90s, they were very successful using these made-to-order. They were using this made-to-order system for computers. Matt?
All the social media are approachable, so like they're always going on to dialogue with, like, whether it be needs, wants.
Okay, yeah. So they have a culture of being approachable and focusing on income. Anything else? I think, yes, Arpit?
So I think their thinking was learning from the customer's needs. So actually listening to your customers and realizing what they need, what they want.
Yes. All right, so customer focus is key. Another thing that I think Carrie may have mentioned at the beginning of the company's history they had a process of integrating various systems. So when you ordered a Dell computer, you would get a Microsoft operating system, you would get an Intel processor, you would get some other company that made various components of it. They always, from the beginning, said, we're taking the best of the best for our customers, and that's what we do at Dell. Focused on the customer, integrated everything. What about this guy who started the company, Michael Dell? Started the company in 1984. How might he have influenced the culture which would lead to social media success? Ready?
He's one of them kind of thing, like he's not some kind of Harvard grad that created like this amazing product, it's just one of the students.
Okay, so one of them, like one of them you mean the employees or the customers?
One of the people.
Man of the people. Okay, so man of the people, and also he's a guy who was always interested in online, internet type of stuff. I think there's a line in the case that he was engaging in message boards and blogs back in the late 1980s. I'd never even heard of the internet in the 1980s, but Michael Dell had, and he was using it effectively. So culturally, always focusing on the customer, integration, Michael Dell was the leader. What was their strategy? What did they get together and say, what do we need to do to reach out effectively, create a good social media campaign? Okay?
Train their employees on how to properly use social media. So basically what happened was I think they're allowing their employees to use social media, but there's like a few thousand blogs when you look for Dell on Facebook. So they realized that there needs to be some sort of format in their outreach.
Okay, all right, so what did you say, 1,000? So there were multiple pages, is that what you're
Yeah, so there's a lot of different blogs about Dell from Dell employees.
Okay.
And so the issue was, there's too many different variations in the outreach itself.
Okay, so our strategy is we want centralized communications, and we want a limited number of Facebook. We want one Facebook page instead of hundreds of Facebook pages. We want one Twitter account, and we want to put this training and execution up there. And I wanted to train their employees, but in terms of their strategy, they want it centralized. What else in terms of strategy? Click.
They used the net performance score, the March score, to give you a judge of how well this communication was.
Yeah, so do you know what the net performance score was? I mean, I read that too. I'm just curious if we can fill out. Anyone heard of the net performance score? All right, so they use the net performance score, which no one, including me, knows exactly what that means, but they use that as part of the indication of their success. Jim?
Different parts of the company were responsible for communicating with different, like I have marketing, responsible for communicating like brand ID on the internet, and sales talk to customers and clients, and then tech talk to individual customers.
Yeah, so what was their strategy then?
Centralized.
Yeah, centralized. Outstanding. So that's a great example. They had the sales doing one thing, the IT people doing another thing, different executives doing something else. Dan?
If I remember right, they essentially didn't focus on one social media, just where they tried to go out on all of those.
Okay, so yeah, we want a strategy that's centralized, but we want all social media. We want a strategy for Facebook, a strategy for Twitter, a strategy for all the others. And they created this generalized way of approaching them all. And then, of course, they trained employees. Let's talk about this training employees. How did that work? Worked well. Yeah, how did they do it? Look.
They had a snack you.
Yes, Smack You. All right, good. What was Smack You? Break it down for us.
It was a tool that they used for social media and communications. So they had managers come in, train these employees how to effectively use social media so they could then speak on behalf of them.
Yes. So they trained their employees. Now, why did they want to train their employees to use social media rather than have a few people in the social media department handling it for them? Alex?
They found that their employees
thought they could reach a lot of people. Why else? Arpit.
So they don't have to monitor what their employees do.
They don't have to monitor? Okay, so they use, I mean, all right. So, but they might have been worried about what their employees, oh, that's why they train them, so they don't have to monitor? Okay,
So they don't have to monitor as much.
yeah, so let me train you from the get-go so that I don't have to monitor. All right, but back to the question of why they use employees versus versus, you know, a handful of people in the social media communications department. Why do they want, I think, 17,000 people working on their behalf on social media versus the few? Then?
Diverse, so kind of real, it's real person, not a machine to communicate to real person, real person.
Okay, so they get more real people. Yeah, what else, Blake?
It might not, the questions that they're asking might not be solely directed to the social media marketing people. It might be going towards the tech guys or the more specialized employees who know more about information about the issue going ahead.
Okay, okay, so there's 17,000 people who might be able to answer your question versus a few people in certain departments. I feel like the big reason is the trustworthiness of those 17,000 people. We already talked about they have a larger following individually than the company has as one. And if your friend on Facebook replies to your comment and says, yeah, a Dell computer is a good way to handle that problem. Or I work for Dell and this is a way we address it. So when your Facebook friend gives you that information versus someone in the Dell marketing department gives you that information, it's more effective. I think that's the big reason why they wanted their employees to speak on their behalf. How about that hashtag I work for Dell? Who can tell us about that? Arpit?
So every time they reply or they comment on someone's question, you have to say that they work for Dell. So it's kind of disclosing that they work for Dell and they're helping. So if you answer to someone and then they realize, oh, you're an employee, they're not gonna take your comment seriously.
Okay, so every time an employee comments on something about Dell, they use the hashtag I work for Dell, just for transparency purposes. Dell wants their employees to be upfront and clear that they are working for the company. But you actually put a negative slant on that, Arpit. You said that when people saw that hashtag or see that hashtag, they might be less inclined to believe what that person says?
No, I'm saying if they found out somehow that that person was an employee but they didn't disclose it,
Gotcha.
you would say that they're trying to sell it.
Okay, absolutely. So being upfront is better than something shady going on that you find out later. So transparency and avoiding that awkward moment down the line right before you're ready to buy. Oh, by the way, this is how I know this. I work for Dell and I get paid, I'm on company time when I answer your questions and they want me to sell them. So that transparency is something that worked for the company. When they created that hashtag, we're gonna be upfront, I work for Dell. All right, where else were we? We're talking about execution. They created Smack View, they trained their employees. What other things did they use for this effective social media strategy?
Blogs. They
What's
have like a few blogs that they created.
Blogs. What were the blogs they created? There's a few key ones. Or blogs or websites or. I think there were 3 that I can remember. There was, I'll tell you and we can discuss this job.